Hello and welcome, history fans, to History Play-by-Play. Today we finish out our story of Nikita Khrushchev visiting the United States.
In all alone. Dangle, shot. He scores!
So we've been talking about Nikita Khrushchev trying to get back at us for the kitchen debate in Moscow, coming to the U.S. and just having a horrible time of everything possibly going wrong for the first 5 days of his trip as the first Russian leader ever to visit the United States. By day 6, he goes to San Francisco from L.A., and there's a genuine shift in how everyone perceives all of it. Really, people start thinking of him as a cranky grandpa, that he has a heart of gold, is just a rough exterior, and he still keeps up his cranky and gruff exterior. He cannot be taken too lightly. He goes and they visit him to a warehouse facility towards the docks. Loves longshoremen. He feels that that's the true Americans. That's the closest you get to the communist workers. And he ends up having an exchange and takes a longshoreman's hat and ends up wearing that for the rest of the day, much to everyone's chagrin because it looks terrible in photos, and they're all like, you can't wear that. He loves it. They take him to tour IBM. He's more impressed with the efficiency of the cafeteria than the computers, and, well, sounds about right. But where things really get interesting is when Nikita Khrushchev visits a supermarket. They take him to a supermarket, and everyone's like, oh my goodness, the leader of the largest communist country on the planet is visiting one of the hearts of American capitalism, the supermarket, the food store, where it was just mobbed with people. Everyone wanted to get pictures of him, that you get people standing all over the place trying to get the right shots. The crowd just gets bigger and more packed. One young girl shakes his hand and she screams, "He touched me!" and faints like he's a rock star. Like people had come out from trying to see him as a curiosity to now seeing him as he's a celebrity. And it's really become one of the first times of everyone just watching what a celebrity is doing from beginning to end, and the over-speculation with the press and just trying to follow it all. And eventually the crowd gets to be too much, and they say they can't guarantee his safety anymore, and they finally whisk him out of the supermarket. A supermarket! Everyone just loved Khrushchev. They thought he was great. They take him later. They want him to see the heart of the country, and probably what he wanted to see most anyways, being a former farm boy. He goes to Des Moines, Iowa. There's a protester sign. I'm sorry there's no picture of it that I could find. "We don't agree with you on many questions, but we welcome you." And Khrushchev sees that and goes, "It's a sensible slogan. I agree with that." The big event here is they go to a meat packing plant in Des Moines, and they turn him into the most capitalist thing, the celebrity pitchman. They give him a hot dog, and they make sure that all the pictures, and he knew what was going on, and he definitely hammed it up. He thought it was very amusing that people suddenly like him. He warmed up to the American people with these 2 days. He eats his hot dog, lots of pictures, and he says, "We have beaten you to the moon," referring to the Lunik 2 that got there just a week prior. "But you have beaten us in sausage making," which is the most American compliment you can get from anyone, I assume. I mean, we're talking about hot dogs. That's how much more American do you want? And then it goes on to a farm, the farm of Roswell Garst. And Garst had made a minor fortune by selling corn to the Soviet Union, to the USSR. He was one of the first to actually say that that's something worth doing, and, well, he found a niche. And Khrushchev, being the boy from Ukraine, talks with him about corn for 3 hours. The second most powerful man in the world, the man who could end the life on Earth with nuclear hellfire, is talking about corn at a random farm in Iowa for 3 hours. And this was not lost on the press. They swarmed the place. They were stomping on crops. They were getting into all sorts of bad places. And it leads to so many absurd photos. I want to share some of these with you. That I don't really have the real context to any of these, but they sure are fun when you think about who's in this picture, and we're the amount of power involved. Just look at his face. Look how happy he is. Look how happy he is. And what went on in this conversation? What did he say to get that response? This parsnip was this big, I swear. Like, come on. Why? Allegedly, the guy in the white shirt snuck in. Why it got this response, I have no idea. But this is some of my most favorite pictures in history because the guy who nearly ended the world, and there he is so happy on a farm. Truly the height of him as a teddy bear, as the grandpa. The Russian bear is a teddy bear. The last part of the trip, as far as traveling, would go to Pittsburgh. He totally mocks Pittsburgh for giving them the key to the city. As I take this symbolic key, and I want you to know that you can trust me with it. I won't overuse it. I won't misuse it. I will follow everything everyone tells me. He thinks that the women of Pittsburgh were totally underdressed, that they were just walking around in shorts and blue jeans and lightweight dresses, and he thought that was scandalous. I guess that tells you something about what's going on in the Soviet Union. They say equality, first woman in space, but shorts. Trade-offs. The last thing, he visited a steel plant in Pittsburgh, and there were a lot of issues because there were a lot of strikes happening at the time. And one of the steel workers gives Khrushchev a cigar. And Khrushchev didn't smoke, but he was touched by the gesture. He thought it was great. He put it in his pocket, and he took a moment, and he took off his wristwatch, and he hands it to the guy. And that made the steelworker a minor celebrity in the country for the couple days. That was his 15 minutes of fame. And he went to a jeweler to ask how much should he insure the watch for. And the jeweler told him, don't bother. The watch was worth $14. The second most powerful man in the world, behind only the president, was wearing a $14 watch. That tells you something about Khrushchev. The point of the actual trip was to meet at Camp David. They spent 2 days there. No more traveling, no more press. Just Ike and Khrushchev talking. And the two countries were too far apart to really create any kind of long-lasting deals. It just wasn't going to happen. Too early. But Khrushchev and Ike kind of developed a light friendship. Khrushchev had developed a trust for the United States that he simply didn't have before. And that's something he could work with. He could build from that. And that's really the important point of this. It's a start. Positive coverage in the U.S. and the USSR led to some of the best months of the entire Cold War. Had things continued this way, it might have been over a whole lot sooner. There would have been a much more friendship rather than what we got. But then it all got thrown away. The U-2 spy plane carrying Francis Gary Powers was shot down over the Soviet Union, taking photos. Powers was captured, eventually traded. That all of that, it wasn't that he was shot down, it wasn't the trade, it wasn't any of that with Powers. It was the fact that Eisenhower was still sending spy planes. And Khrushchev took this as a personal response. That the trust was gone. He was very upset by this. That what he thought he gained with Ike at Camp David was all flushed. And Khrushchev, this is where he gets to be his most boisterous and ridiculous. At the UN shortly thereafter, this is where he starts berating a delegate from the Philippines, saying that no, people in the Soviet Union do have rights. He calls him a jerk, a stooge, a lackey, and a toady of American imperialism. Okay. And eventually, this is where the shoe pounding incident happens, where he was called to order and takes off his shoe and starts pounding it on the desk, saying that no, you're out of order. And eventually, you get the footage of the Soviet delegation pounding their fists, trying to make this statement that this whole thing is corrupt. And it's at that trip to the UN that he meets a young revolutionary named Fidel Castro, and that's where that friendship really happens between newly communist Cuba and the Soviet Union. The Berlin Wall is put up shortly thereafter in 1961, and then missiles get placed in Cuba, and we have the Cuban Missile Crisis. And for 13 days, we stood at the brink of nuclear annihilation with then-President Kennedy. That we got to DEFCON 2, the closest we've ever been to nuclear war. We've never been at DEFCON 2 since. This is the closest we came to ending the world. And Khrushchev was the man behind it. And yet, for a few days back in 1959, he was just that farm boy who really, really loved corn. that he became a friend of the American people, that we liked the guy. And there's a reason that that's my favorite photo in all of history, is that that's the guy who nearly blew up the world. And look how happy he is about corn. For a moment, we nearly had a good branch towards peace, and then we threw it all away. And it only got worse and worse and worse. Khrushchev would be removed from power in 1964, followed by Leonid Brezhnev, and then it all starts all over again. And on that note, is all I got for you. That's the end of the episode. What you just saw is this teacher's interpretation of events. If you use this for a class, let me know how that went in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you can figure out how today's jersey matches the content, let me know in the comments. That's extra credit. I'm John Baranowski, and thanks for watching.